Is it cheaper to live off the grid? The short answer is no, it is not. And you might think it is because of your imagination, but I'm going to tell you why you'd be wrong to think that. First off, you want electricity, right? You want internet. Well, that means you have to buy a solar power system and batteries. Now, mine is 20 years old, and so I'm going to fix it with some new batteries. So I'm going to have to buy those. And actually, that's barely any power since I only have 340 watts of panels, which is like nothing. It's not enough for people if they want to, for example, have a remote job and stay with me for a while. I need more electricity, which means I need to buy 2 whole new systems, one for one building and one for another. And I've already got buried cables to different buildings, and I'll actually be able to bury more cables so I can have those systems serve more places. Because at night, we can use far less electricity, which reduces our need for batteries. Batteries are the expensive part of solar. Although eventually solar panels do also go bad, and mine are old now. They're 20 years old. I think they're usually warranted for 30. But yeah, so whatever system I get will be a big decision. Also, I have to put up fencing. I don't have good fencing, so my fences fall down since they're just barbed wire with wooden posts. Well, that's a whole bunch of labor to keep those up. And I have about 3 kilometers of fencing. So in that case, I should actually go with a more expensive solution like concrete posts, because they don't need to be replaced. And that is a good option for a lot of parts of it. But I also want to keep dogs from leaving. So I need to run like chain link fencing, or I have a lot of options for fencing, and each one has its upsides and downsides. But I have to have ways to trap dogs at home. Absolutely critical. Other costs are I drink unfiltered rainwater, which is still not free even though it's the rain, because I have to store it. Luckily, I have a ton of storage, and I have a lifestyle that uses very little water. But my sauna kind of sucks. It's a wood-fired sauna, so I need to build a solar sauna, not photovoltaic. It's going to use evacuated tube solar hot water heaters. But people can't just be taking showers all the time. And so the sauna will allow them to be clean to their standards and not use hardly any water. You still will have cold water to rinse off with, but nobody wastes cold water. Of course, maintaining buildings is also expensive. Stuff happens, like, a raven might decide to break a window, peck at its own reflection. I had that problem in a couple buildings. We eventually put a mirror on the side of the building so it would peck at that instead. Worked fine. It's really kind of a smart move. So there are lots of, if you live off the grid, there are lots of bills you don't have, such as an electric bill. But if you were to amortize the cost of solar power over time, it still has a cost. Electricity is not free. It will never be free. If it ever became free in the world, then we would, kill ourselves with heat pollution and die off, because we're, dumb, kind of, about energy use. Other costs, there's a cost to getting people there, which is sometimes sucked up by them, but people get lost. They take a lot of time. I guess time is a different thing, but like when I've hosted a lot of people, all my time is gone. And I'm absolutely exhausted because people always need something. Now, later on, when there's a store and a storekeeper, then people can get products that they need that they forgot, like feminine products, condoms, pencil, pen, notebooks, consumable items. So, I mean, I need services that aren't just me. I can't be everybody's babysitter. It's too fucking exhausting. In the case of the water, I don't want them drinking the rainwater. And that's also not free because the storage is very expensive to build. And I don't even capture, probably 10% of the water I could. But it would require gutters and spending a bunch on these big plasticky cisterns to hold the water. And so we're talking tens of thousands of dollars if I want to do full rain capture. Also, people can't drink rainwater because I don't totally trust it, and I don't want them getting sick even if it's psychosomatic from my rainwater, because some people will. People are amazingly creative in the ways to fuck a place over. one lady came and claimed that her cabin had bed bugs in it. Well, we looked at it and we couldn't find any bed bugs. But of course that rumor spread everywhere. It was a big group here at the time, and so then people thought there were bed bugs, and there's no fucking bed bugs. You know, people will just make shit up. I mean, one guy was here, and then he went from here to Burning Man, and he decided that he got hepatitis at my place. And nobody at my place had hepatitis. And he had just gone to Burning Man, which means he got hepatitis at Burning Man and blamed me. So unfortunately, that's just the nature of the world. Other costs to running the place: dog food, food for me. There's just wear and tear. I'm maintaining like 12 buildings and not doing it well because there's no people in them most of the time, and that means there's animals living in them, so I have to probably hire somebody to clean them up and seal them better so the animals can't get in. In some ways, living off the grid can reduce a bunch of bills, but I still have internet bill too, and people really want internet, so I'm going to have internet. A lot of bills go away, I guess. Like, I don't have a sewer bill. My water bill is just different. It's different than other water bills. I don't have a lot of monthly bills. But that doesn't mean shit's free. And yeah, I live in a forest and I'm trying to make it into a food forest, but that also takes a bunch of work. And even though a well-developed food forest will produce a lot of food at less cost, is my theory, than traditional agriculture. I'm not sure what the word traditional agriculture means. What I guess I mean is industrial agriculture. Food forest farming is the actual traditional agriculture. And that does work with way less effort. But I don't have that right now. And to grow enough food for a bunch of people and then store it in like root cellars and stuff, or preserve it somehow, fermenting it, drying it, etc., takes a lot of work. Farming is a bunch of work, especially if you're doing it without fossil fuel energy in the form of fossil fuel fertilizers or machinery. Everything's done by hand. And then some wheelbarrows and shovels and all that. But that's inherently more expensive way to get food. So I would actually, for now, just purchase food. It's the easier way to go. But if we put a bunch of labor into growing more trees that produce food, perennials and stuff, grafting onto trees that exist, native trees, and just really developing the whole food forest system, yeah, the cost of food will eventually go down. But for now, it's easiest to just buy it because, people who haven't farmed are really delusional about thinking, oh, you just have a garden and it produces everything. It's like, I don't irrigate either. So if you're able to irrigate, then you can have a lot more production. I could grow shit all year. Seriously. In this climate, it'd be great. But it's just completely delusional. And so there's a lot of people, for example, they think that when shit hits the fan and society collapses, civilization collapses, they think, oh, I got my bug out bag, and I'm going to go out in the woods and I'm going to live off the land. And it's like, no, you're not. You're going to fucking die. Like most people will. So figure your shit out now before the apocalypse happens, because you're going to be in a very weak position along with millions and billions of other people when worldwide civilization collapses. And you don't know how to live off the land. And people who do live off the land either have a completely different lifestyle than you're used to and have lived in maybe a nicer climate, or they've built up the infrastructure to be comfortable. But we're now living in a damaged world that is less productive. The oceans used to be filled with food. The rivers used to have salmon in some places. Everything was abundant, and we pretty much have killed everything. Even around here, there's barely any deer. You know, it's really rare to ever see one. I went way up in the hills and I saw deer droppings, and I've seen deer a couple of times. But the thing is, most stuff's been killed. I know there's other places where there's an abundance of deer. Those are richer places, and those deer will get killed off pretty quickly when the food supply system is interrupted. So don't expect to be able to hunt your way out of it. I mean, sure, some tiny percentage of people might survive collapse, but it's going to be a tiny percentage. And any solar power you have will eventually go bad. Maybe not for you, but for your kids. And solar panels won't be available. So really, what we want to do is develop a lifestyle that needs no additional energy at all. Even the technology of evacuated tube solar hot water heaters is questionable, since we can't make those, although they would probably still work even if they lost their vacuum. They wouldn't work as well. But yeah, and of course I get contacted by a bunch of these people that want to stay for free, and the answer is no, not going to happen. There is nothing free. And they're moochers. They really don't like to be called that. That's very upsetting, because that makes me into the evil capitalist who isn't giving them the free shit that they deserve, because they grew up spoiled and delusional. There are other costs with living the lifestyle that I do. Like, my camera is kind of old and beat up, and I've kept it going, but both the batteries I have for it, I've only got two, are held together with duct tape. And those are kind of expensive batteries, especially with shipping. To where I'm at, it's the shipping costs more than the batteries. Now, that's something somebody could buy somewhere or have shipped to them in an easier to get to spot, and then they could bring it here. So I should have a list of things people can get to me that would be way cheaper for them to just bring. It'd be really fantastic. And then, computers. I mean, somebody gave me a computer like 2 or 3 years ago, and it was fantastic, but it started to do some weird shit. And I mean, they really saved my life by giving me this computer, because my computer went bad, and suddenly then I can't communicate. I can't make videos for you. And so really, I mean, it's almost like every year I should get a new computer, especially once I have more people here, because then I could pass that computer on or sell it to somebody else. Every 2 years could also be fine. But, software tends to get more complex and uses up more memory. So, like, even now, I'm always pushing the limits of my computer, and in terms of, like, having too many tabs open and suddenly I'm out of memory and stuff like that. So, there's costs like that. Another cost is clothing. I mean, I wear the fuck out of stuff. I still wear clothing I bought in the 80s at a thrift store. Not that much of it, because I have shirts that have holes all over them and they're ripped and everything. Other one is laundry. I don't do my own laundry at home, which means right now I've been wearing the same clothing for at least 2 months. Except I changed my socks because they actually wore out. I just wear the same pair of socks until they wear out. Big holes in them. Shoes. My shoes, like, I bought these nice shoes, my tennis shoes here, and they've already got rips in them because I walk far on difficult ground constantly, every day. And so it's not like I'm driving places, especially not now that the van is dead. That's another big cost, is owning a vehicle is a massive cost. I mean, that's just filled with costs, and the transmission's out, needs a new battery probably, and so I'm currently without a vehicle, which makes other costs occur, like getting shit delivered. So everything is very, 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 very expensive and very, very, very difficult. And so this delusion people have that it's all just magic hippie prancing around in the forest shit is just nuts. Like, become aware, and hopefully this video will help you. That's what I'm trying to do, is help you become aware, because a lot of people want to go visit like off-grid people, and they're like, well, I'll make a video of you, and that's how I'll pay you for my visit. And it's like, I can make my own videos, and I know I'm going to have to babysit you, and you are an actual cost. I don't need you to do that. And the people who want to travel around in that way shouldn't do that. It's rude. It's rude to continually take advantage of people who are living in tough conditions, have no income, and you want to travel the world taking advantage of them. That's why I'm rude, and I say no. No, no, no more. Forget it. I guess the thing about living off the grid is that you have a lot of sunk costs, meaning you have to put a bunch of costs in infrastructure that make it so you can live cheaper. But that doesn't mean you're then living for free just because you put money into something and built it correctly. For example, if I build a building correctly, I shouldn't need any energy for heating or cooling. Well, I asked an architect friend of mine once, why don't more people dig buildings in? And he said, well, it's just more expensive. Because obviously using the cooling, stabilizing temperature of the earth is really good in most any climate. You know, it's never too hot or too cold. Actually, it's gotten a little too cold. But then on the outside of the building, you want to have a greenhouse. So you're sucking in all the heat of the sun and then living between the heat of the sun and the coolness of the earth in really comfortable conditions. Well, building that correctly with rain collection, with composting toilets, and all the systems that you would want is going to cost you more than building in a regular house kind of way. So it's more expensive to start with. That doesn't mean it didn't cost anything, because there's also opportunity costs. Like what if you had that money in an investment account? It would be producing more in some cases than, well, I think investing in developing an off-grid lifestyle is a really good investment, because that if you do the infrastructure correctly, it ends up being cheaper in the long run. Like if you have a root cellar instead of a refrigerator. I don't have a refrigerator. There's lots of costs that I don't have, but mostly they're at the loss of comfort and ease of living. Because there's a lot of costs that make things way easier, but are a bad investment overall. So it's just complicated in ways that would be hard to understand if you didn't actually live this way for 20 years. Of course, none of this even counts the cost of buying the land, which when I bought this land, I could have probably lived on what I had and retired. If I lived really cheap and put all that into the stock market, especially if I'd have bought Bitcoin, but who knows where that was going to go. I could have probably just quit working, and I was only 37. So, but I decided instead to create this bizarre project, this attempt at creating an alternative to the normal default culture, and do a lot of work to build and create that. And I've hosted tons of people for free, which in retrospect was probably kind of dumb, because it sets a precedent where then people just think stuff should be free. And I used to get people contacting me every day wanting to stay for free, or in exchange for their labor, which is mostly worthless, by the way. People can't actually work. They don't have the attention span or physical strength or stamina to do that very well. It's better for me, especially because I want to support my local community. It's better for me to just hire local labor, depending on the project. And I have learned a lot about how to work with people, and I have ideas about how I can work with people that come here and make a win-win situation with them instead of just me losing. So I'm trying to figure it out. But yeah, the cost of the land was pretty massive. And it was a good deal, but it's still, and it was a good investment because the price of land has only increased, and it's only will increase. So I believe in land as a good investment. It's a much safer investment than the stock market, which could collapse at any time. Money's pretty fake anyway, the way it exists in the world. So there is that. And my time does have value. I have value. And so every time somebody says they want to come for free, what they're doing is they're saying, your place is really cool. It's so great. They'll compliment it. And they love having a fun time and partying and stuff. But the fact that they don't want to pay anything tells you what they really think of you. They think you should be their slave. That's the message I get when I'm asked by people to stay for free. So what they really think is that you're worthless, but they want your stuff and your time. So it's fucked up. It's a very fucked up world, and it's that kind of thinking that will cause civilization to collapse. That's part of it. There's other issues too, but that's why we're all screwed. Is because of fundamental selfishness and a lack of empathy. I know I sound grumpy. It's because I'm experienced. And I'm trying to be as giving a person as I can be, and I have been. I've given away more than most people have, that I know of anyway. I've hosted refugees in my home that came through an organization called World Vision. I'm not even religious, but I grew up that way, so they knew about me, and that was years ago. And some people have said, oh, you should host a bunch of refugees because you have all that land. And it's like, no, I don't have resources to do that. I didn't have barely resources to survive myself. So no. Why don't you host some refugees? Why don't you do what you're demanding I do? But that's not what they want. They want somebody else to give shit away for free. And if the other person doesn't, then they'll call them selfish. You know? That's fucked up. It's really fucked up.